I'm going to need a volunteer specialist. How do you say your name?
Lugo.
Lugo, can you carry this for me to the back of the classroom, please?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, you sit down right there. Would it be a little easier if maybe you got some help?
Yes.
Can you pick a battle buddy and ask them for help?
Han.
Ready?
Yep.
All right, that's far enough. You can just set it off to the side so it's not a tripping hazard. That's good. Thank you. All right, give them a round of applause. Yeah, hey, good job. Yeah, thank you. All right. So how heavy was that?
Very heavy.
Very heavy. How much? Take a
I
guess.
feel weak now.
Feel weak?
Everyone saw that I am a weak person.
Take a guess. How much do you think it weighed?
70 pounds?
Oh, that's pretty close. What do you think?
Like 150 probably.
Not quite that much. It was probably about 85 to 90 pounds. Yeah. So don't feel weak. That's pretty heavy. So no, that's heavy. I would have been very impressed if you were just like single arm swung it and just took off.
I would have, but I felt like I was gonna fall forward.
It would have ruined my entire presentation if you did that. Because the point that I'm trying to make is which was easier, to do it alone or to do it with a battle buddy. Yeah.
So battle buddy help.
With a battle buddy, yeah. So now let's get a little bit creative. Okay. So she asked for a battle buddy for some help. What are some other ways that she could have transported that to the back of the classroom? Sure.
Put it on her back.
Okay. Sure. Let's try to think of maybe some easier ways.
Would it be possible to lighten the load?
And how would she do that?
You'd have to look inside yourself and figure out what is the extra baggage that you could pull out, maybe what's mission essential and what isn't.
Okay. There we go. We're already seeing some good connections made here. So let's say that we have to get all the contents there to accomplish the objective. Are you familiar with the question, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. So I think what you're going with there is she could have opened the bag and transported individual contents one at a time. The objective is just to get it to the end. It doesn't have to be all at once. Process it into smaller chunks. What's one more thing she could have done that I can think of right off the top of my head?
Put it on a rolling chair and
boom!
back there.
Money. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah. Put it on. Use the tools around you. Find what support structures you have. And it's a lot easier to wheel something than to carry it or drag it, right? And so when it comes to dealing with carrying heavy loads, we have to pause for a second. And this gets on the point. How do you say your name?
Cramey?
Cramey. Yes, I would have got that wrong. So what Specialist Cramey was alluding to there is we have to ask ourselves, what is strength? Okay. So what do we talk about when we say that somebody is a strong person? So the question is, when we see a real life example of having to carry a heavy load, who is the stronger person? The person who attempts to carry the load by themselves, but ends up throwing their back out, and then is in hospital for a week, and then is in physical rehab for 6 months while they're rehabilitating? Or is the strongest person the one who asks for help, accomplishes the mission the first time, and then everybody's healthy? Right? All the while, the person who's not injured can, do some extra training to prepare for the next heavy load, so it's a little lighter on them, right? Who's stronger? The person who attempts to just shoulder the burden, carry it all at once, and take it on, or is maybe the strongest person the one who says, I can't safely carry this by myself in this manner, so maybe I need to think of other ways to process this heavy load. So I'm going to break it down one piece at a time. I'm going to handle one part of the problem at a time. I think we can see that in terms of just pragmatically and sheer efficiency, the strongest person is the one who knows when to ask for help. And so that directly connects to how we need to approach our mental capabilities as well, and our mental fitness. Okay, so when we talk about physical fitness, we see that there are burdens too great for us to carry alone. And if we try, we run a high risk of injury. I mean, just to be realistic, how far do you think you could have carried that before you actually would have been injured? Probably not very far.
Not too far.
Not too far. I think you probably could have safely made it to the back of the classroom without any permanent damage, but if I'd asked you to go on a ruck march with that amount of weight, I mean, that's probably close to over half your body weight or more. That's not safe.
That's more than my body weight.
Yeah, that's more than your body weight. Yeah, so you very likely
more than half.
way more than half your body weight. Yes, the odds of you getting injured within the first quarter mile are very high, right? And so when we talk about our mental health, we need to recognize when there are stressors in our life, our mental, our emotional, the spiritual components of who we are, there are times when those burdens get so great that we need to reassess what it means to be strong. And I can only speak as a man, but I know as a man, I like to say, I'm the husband, I have to do it all. I'm the dad. It's my job to do it all. I have to be the one that accomplishes it. That's just being bullheaded. And a lot of times, that puts myself into a tailspin too, because I try to take on too much at once. And so we have to learn when to ask for help. We have to learn how that we can accomplish the objective and take care of ourselves so that we stay healthy mentally. When I was over in Boone yesterday, and I was talking with some of the mechanics out there, they were explaining to me blade balancing on the Blackhawks. And are there any mechanics in here? No, because you're HSC, right? Yes, we didn't have any Bravo that was able to make it. No, okay. Yeah, so they were explaining to me, how much would you guess of a weight differential can be off on the blades on a Blackhawk before problems start occurring?
No more than a pound, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's actually less than that. A couple ounces. A couple ounces of stress is all it takes for that blade to start wobbling enough that at first you won't see any major problems, but if you don't attend to that little problem, that one little extra couple ounces of stress that's on that blade, if you don't adjust that and you don't fix that, then very quickly it's going to keep coming around and around. It's going to create a wobble in the whole Blackhawk, and then parts are going to start shaking loose, and there's going to be damage everywhere. That's how stress works in our life. We think we can ignore it. We think we can shove it off, whatever problems we're dealing with. But then the next time it comes back around, it's going to cause more and more damage. And it's going to start affecting more than just your mental health. It's going to start affecting your relationships and your physical health. So what we're going to talk about, myself and Patrick, are going to be some ways that we can help take care of ourselves mentally and how we can stay strong. And so I want us to think about where we can find strength. As we've already seen, there are going to be times in your life when strength isn't the ability to carry every burden on your own. But true strength is knowing when and how to get help. And so when we talk about our mental fitness and our mental health, there's two big compartments that you can go to for strength. One is proactive measures that you can take, and the other is reactive. So let's talk about the proactive things that you can do. Think about going to the gym to get physically strong. You know that if you go to the gym, you keep a healthy diet, and you work out regularly, you're going to get stronger. Say you're working to get that 340 deadlift. Well, the only way to get stronger is to practice the deadlift. That's a proactive measure that you are setting yourself up for success. Well, mentally, there's some training that you can do to set you up for success when life starts to really feel like crap. All right? So, first thing you can do, and I already mentioned it once, is just diet. How many of you knew that your diet is directly linked to your mental health? Yeah, a couple of you. So that's something that the Army's being more and more aware of. How many of you have heard of the new Army doctrine of holistic health? Yeah, so that's new. It just got pushed out this training year, and it's starting to be implemented Army-wide. It's AR 7-22, if you want to look it up. But the holistic health approach is that the Army has recognized from scientific studies with behavioral health professionals, with physical health professionals, that to be a healthy person, you have to take care of yourself, mind, body, and soul. You got to go all three. And the diet is directly connected to your mood as well. And I hate to share this information with you because I really hated when I learned it myself. But food that tastes good probably isn't good for you, unfortunately. I had one guy over in Boone this morning who said, "That's not true, I love salads." I'm like, okay, well, aside from the weirdo who likes kale, most of us, we like the sugars, we like the processed foods, we like the fatty, greasy foods, we love the caffeine. I had an energy drink on the drive here. because I had to get our VIP of the day, Patrick Medved, here safely, and that was going to require a little extra kick in the pants. All right? But here's the bad news for you. Sugar, processed foods, and caffeine all release stress hormones in our body.
That's what this country's built on.
So if you are already having problems, struggling with mental health issues because you've got a lot going on in your life, and you continue going for those just pleasure, feel-good substances, those things are only going to add to your tailspin, because when we consume them, it releases the stress hormones, and if you aren't mentally prepared to handle them and process them, then it's going to just rapidly send you out of control. So number one is clean up your diet. You know, just eat a healthier diet, drink more water, eat more kale, all that not fun stuff, but it will prepare you for long-term success. The next side of that is exercise as well. Now, kind of the golden rule for general physical fitness is 20 minutes a day. It's kind of the standard. But for mental health, it's an easier standard to hit. As little as 5 minutes a day of aerobic exercise. You know, take a lap around the building. Drop and do a couple sets of push-ups. 5 minutes a day gives your brain a huge cognitive boost. It improves your self-image and your confidence, and it releases all those feel-good chemicals so that when the stresses start coming back in your life, you're more mentally prepared to process and handle that stress. So you're training your brain by training your body. It's kind of like a win-win. Another proactive approach that we can take is what you all were doing before we started this brief. What were you guys doing? Most of you.
On our phones.
Socializing.
Oh, I don't say on your phones. No, socializing. I saw most of you, of course everybody was checking their phone occasionally, but I was actually impressed that most of you were just conversing with one another. One of the best, and I'm going to rank this as number one in my personal opinion, I can't point to a hard number, but in my personal opinion, the best proactive measure that you can take for mental health is rapport and friendship. To not just turn to somebody when you need help and use that person only as a crutch, but to just be a friendly person. Be friends to one another, and to just build that relationship and rapport so that it becomes normal and common to just share what's going on in your life with one another. That talking about the hard things isn't so hard because you talk about the only kind of hard things all the time. So when the stress really skyrockets because you just lost your job, or maybe you're going through some relationship issues, or maybe you're a new parent and you were just totally lost in the sauce what to do, you don't have to say, I have no one I can turn to. No one could possibly relate to what I'm going through right now. You already have a system of friends in place that you already are talking to, and that you are already aware of their problems, and they're already aware of your stressors, so that when things get really, really tough, they're already there to help you. And then the last proactive measure, and most people don't think of this as being a proactive measure, and so I want to remove this big stigma, because too many people think it's purely reactive, is to go to counseling. I don't know why this has happened, but there's this huge negative stigma that seeing a therapist, seeing a counselor, is only for when, that person's life is totally a train wreck. I mean, they're absolutely in shambles, they're falling apart, they should be, in the emergency room and medicated right now. That could not be further from the truth. Let me ask you, anybody here play high school or college sports? Okay, so a lot of you. By chance, did anybody ever play at the semi-pro or professional level? All right, what sport?
Water polo?
Oh, that's cool. That's not a very common one around here, is it?
No.
Are you from Iowa?
No, I'm from Puerto Rico.
There's a lot of water down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as the national team.
Okay, for the national team. Very cool. We have, I don't know how Puerto Rican sports work. Is that like semi-pro, professional?
It was professional.
Professional?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that you are struggling hitting your nutrition or your fitness standards, and you know that specialist Lugo
Yes.
was a professional athlete. Think she might be a good resource to get some tips on, like, hey, I've kind of plateaued, or hey, I'm looking to drop a few pounds or improve my PT score. What's maybe some training tips you could give me? You think she'd be a pretty good resource for that? I think she probably would be. Oh, she don't doubt yourself.
Swimming, yes.
Swimming,
running.
yes. Swimming is great exercise.
Not for running.
Not for running, though?
I'm terrible at running.
Okay. Well, if you need help swimming, she'd be the person to go to. All right. And the point being that when we recognize that we are trying to improve ourselves physically, there's no negative stigma with going to see a physical trainer. The Army has this program called the Master Fitness Trainer, where we send soldiers to become certified fitness and nutritionist experts to train soldiers. And there's absolutely zero negative stigma with, oh yeah, I got to follow this regimen that the Master Fitness Trainer gave me to follow to improve my physical health. So why in the world is there such negativity associated with, yeah, I'm going to go see this counselor to keep my mental health up? I know one soldier in the battalion who does exactly that. He's been married for, I can't remember exactly how many years, but he's closing in on a decade of marriage. And him and his wife have never had a major blow up. They don't have any serious relationship issues. Of course, they fight from time to time, as is normal with relationships. But they've never had any major blow-ups. But they go to marriage counseling regularly. They go, I believe he said they try to get at least 4 sessions in a year, maybe a couple more if they're having, some unique situations, like after a baby's born, they maybe get an extra session in to help out. But they do it proactively because they've recognized that their relationship is too important to not go get some tune-ups every once in a while and to not seek out that help. So seeking out counseling is an excellent proactive approach. Now, when we talk about reactive things we can do, this is, okay, life is really, really bad right now. I mean, I've got the 150-pound weight on my shoulders. I don't think I can even stand up right now. I feel totally helpless. I feel totally hopeless. What are some things I can do? Well, first, you can reach out to somebody. You can call someone. But another thing you can do is you can implement things called grounding techniques. Has anybody heard of grounding techniques before? Okay. We got one? That's okay. So grounding techniques are for those situations when, stress is really getting the best of me right now, and I'm totally just tail spinning, out of control, and I need to be firmly planted again. And so grounding techniques are things that give you some form of physical or mental stimulation that will distract you from all those anxiety and depressive thoughts that's got you in that tailspin. So grounding techniques, there's 1,000,001 of them out there. So if you think these might be helpful for you, I would encourage you to kind of just do a quick Google search, is grounding techniques, and you'll find all kinds. I'm going to share with you some of the ones that I personally use, because I found them to be highly effective for helping me refocus when I start feeling pretty down. And so, first thing, take a cold shower. Because when that cold water hits you, you're not thinking about anything else other than, oh, that is cold. And just that reset can go a long ways. Another one that I like to do is exercise. My favorite is to go out for a run. But if I'm somewhere where I can't just go out for a run, my second favorite is to I'll just do push-ups. And I'll just do push-ups until I physically and or mentally just can't do it anymore. Doing the push-ups gives me a specific task to do to take my mind off of whatever's getting me down. It gets the blood pumping, all the blood gets away from the brain, out into the muscles, and I'm focused on one more rep, one more rep, one more rep. And I just go until I feel better, or until I literally can't lift myself, but by that point I'm usually starting to feel better. Another one that I like to do is writing. Sometimes, just when my emotions are starting to get the best of me and I just don't feel like I can express myself or know what to do, and I might say some stupid things to my wife or some things that I might regret, what I do is I just start writing. And it gives me an outlet to express everything I'm feeling, but in a safe way. That once I've said everything I need to say on paper, I can take it, put it in the shredder, light it on fire. That's a pretty cathartic release when you can just set something on fire in a safe manner, okay? And so those are just an example of a few grounding techniques. Another one that I do, especially as a chaplain, probably won't surprise you, is I just pray. I just pray. And that helps me tremendously. Because not only does it help me feel closer to God and remind me that God understands what I'm going through, but it gives me a singular point of focus as well. And if you're not the praying type, just simple breathing techniques. Just don't necessarily count at first, just some deep breaths in and out, and then slowly start building up a counting routine of 7 seconds in, 11 seconds out. 7 seconds in, 11 seconds out. That focus and that oxygen rejuvenation and that control, I'm in control of my breathing. That one thing that you can control is enough to give you that mental reset. All right, so let's say we've been through this, and you know what? Things are still pretty bad. So what if doing those still isn't enough, and you're just, at a total loss? What's next? All right, so I'm going to need a volunteer. Is there anybody here that works for a fire department by chance? Police officer? EMT? Anybody here who has graduated kindergarten? All right, come on up to the front then. Perfect. All right, this is kind of a small stage, so do the best you can with the space you got. All right, so I would like for you to show me what you would do in the event that your shirt is on fire.
Oh, he says stop, drop, and roll?
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. That's good. That's good there. Perfect. Yes, thank you. All right, very good. Yes, thank you. They give a round. Yeah. Stop, drop, and roll. All right, we practiced this when we were kids. How many here have practiced that in school? It should be 100%. At least I think they still teach that. Stop, drop, and roll. We rehearse that because we recognize that there is a chance that at some point in your life, your clothes might be set on fire. And so how do you put it out? Well, the most effective way is to stop, drop, and roll. And so let me ask you this. Everybody has practiced stop, drop, and roll at some point. How many of you have been set on fire before? Man, what is it with these people? Man, you guys live crazy lives. All right, that's even higher than the last group. Whew. You guys, wow, you're on the wild side there. All right, so I will say it's the numbers still work in my favor here. That was still about 20% of you, okay? Which was, again, higher than I was expecting. So we practice stop, drop, and roll for something that isn't that likely to happen. But when we, the reason I'm so surprised by these numbers is across the United States, there's only about 15,000 cases per year of someone being caught on fire. At least that's enough to go to the emergency room, so maybe you guys didn't have to go to the emergency room. But anyway, when we talk about mental health, approximately 20%, I want you to think about that, 20%, for the mathletes out there, that's 1 in 5, Americans are currently, right now, struggling with mental health enough to the point that they should be seeking professional help. 1 in 5. Think about how many people are in this room. 1 in 3, if you look to your left and look to your right, one of them, and if it's not either one of them, it's you, will struggle with it at some point in your life. But how often do we practice the steps that we should go through when we have mental crises? Not very often, if ever. And so I am a huge fan of the classic Army standard of stop, drop, and roll for mental health. And that's the ACE method. Probably everyone here has heard of that. The Ask, Care, Escort. And so I'm going to ask one more question of you guys. It's pretty late in the day, so I don't know if this will quite work. But how many of you here? Let me all up the number. So how many of you here have spent, let's say, 30 minutes or more on your phones today? All right, that's a good majority. And now, how many of you have spent 30 minutes or more in eye-to-eye conversation with somebody? Okay, that's good. That's good. I commend you all. That's great. That's what I was hoping to see, especially this late in the day. I can say that national average phone time is 4 to 6 hours a day. And now that's the average. And I say 4 to 6 because different age groups have higher. Teenagers have the highest. If they're in school all day, when are they finding time to have 6 hours on their phone? I don't know. Teenagers have the highest though. But 4 to 6 hours a day. Which means if you have less than that, someone out there has more than that. So if you're only on your phone for 2 hours, there's somebody out there that's on their phone for upwards of 8 to 10 hours, because that's how averages work. So imagine spending that much time on your phone every day. And just based on that national average, kind of my personal / professional opinion, is that a lot of times we have trouble with asking because we are forgetting how to talk with one another. face-to-face, in genuine conversation. Because as a culture, we're shifting very rapidly towards caring more about what our digital presence is like than what our physical presence is like. So when a friend who is hurting comes to you and is expressing suicidal ideations, and you are supposed to ask them, are you thinking about killing yourself? It's really, really awkward for you. Because you're not used to having to talk about such serious things with people. Because it's so much easier to ignore the people around you and just get that instant gratification of the next funny video that you're scrolling through. I'm speaking in generalities here. I'm not saying this applies to you, but just based on national averages. I don't want it to be awkward for you all to have to look to somebody and say, are you thinking about killing yourself? At the point that you think you should ask that question, the odds are really, really good they already have been thinking about it. So it's not like you're going to be planting that idea for them. Most likely it's already there, and it is the single best way to open that door for a genuine conversation that will save their life. And after you ask the question, the C, care, is next. Caring should be the easiest thing you ever do in your life. All you have to do is be the friend. Just listen. Say, okay, things are pretty rough right now. What's going on? What has got you to this level of distress that you're thinking about taking your own life? Just talk to me. And then just listen. Listening in that moment is the greatest gift that you can give them. To just allow them to vent. Give them some encouragement as best as you feel you can. And part of caring for them is making sure that they stay in a safe environment, which might mean eliminating any form of lethal means from the environment, such as weapons or pills. And then the last step is to escort, is to get them the professional help that they need. And so for the last portion, I want to talk about what you can do to help yourself or a friend if you're in that situation. So how many of you have your phones on you right now? All right, good. Can everybody see the screen? It might be a little hard in the back. Okay. I want everybody with as much authority as given to me by the Army as a second lieutenant, I'm going to give an order to put this number in your phones. And now my favorite response that we had earlier was, I already got it. If I had a gold star, I would have given it to that soldier. And for the quick draw films among us that already have the number entered and are waiting for the next step, that's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Already got it. I love it. That's awesome. See, there have been too many times, I will just say in my whopping 1 year as a chaplain, I have already seen way too many cases where a soldier had a friend come to them with suicidal ideations, and that soldier didn't know how to help them and didn't know who to call. This is a number that you can call. Now, I want to ask you this question. How many of you all feel comfortable just calling up a total stranger? Yeah, okay, we got a couple hands, but generally speaking, most people don't like to just call random numbers because they're afraid they won't say the right things and they're not sure what's going to happen. So every number with the exception of one that I'm about to give you, I have called personally because I wanted to understand the process so that I can take that fear of the uncertainty and that awkwardness of calling out of it for you. So I called this number, and within let's see, question one was Spanish or English. Question two was, are you a veteran or are you currently in the military? So military, check. That's number one. So dial that number, press 1. Less than 30 seconds, I'm talking to this sweet lady from Georgia named Camille. And she was just about the nicest person you could imagine. And I just told her, hey, I'm a chaplain with a 248. I just want to call to see what this process is like and see who answers this phone. And so we had a really good conversation, and she said that their role, when you call that number, is to listen and to evaluate what type of help that person might need, and then to help them get whatever that help might be. And I'm telling you, she was just so kind. And she said the number one reason that people call that number is because of failing and broken relationships. And the second most common was issues related to substance abuse and addiction. And so I wanted to share that with you so that you know if you or a friend is struggling with one of those issues, it's not like you're alone in this. It's not like you're the only one. It's very common. It's very common to ask for help with those. All right. The next number is 911. For obvious reasons, I didn't call this number because I was not currently experiencing an emergency. But what I did do was I called a good friend of mine who's a police officer in Boone, and I said, "Hey, Ethan, Officer Bailey. So I'm doing this presentation, and I just want to know what is the process when somebody calls 911 because of suicide attempt or suicide ideations." And he said, "Yeah, it's no problem. That's something that we deal with all the time." He's been in the police force for about 10 years now, and he averages several per month, to let you know how common it is. And step one, call 911. Operator's going to say name and location. After you give the name and location, it's going to be a description of what the actual physical environment is like. "Oh, we're just sitting in the office, and my friend here is just going through a really hard time and has expressed some suicidal ideation, just calling to see if we can get some help." Or maybe it's a matter of, my friend here is to the point of attempting, and I just need help taking care of them. Well, 911, they're going to get a hold of the police. They're going to send the police, and it's this way in Boone, so I'm assuming it's this way in all of Iowa, but your law enforcement are all trained in suicide intervention. So they are going to physically go where you are, and then they're going to emotionally go where you are, and they're going to sit with you, and they're going to talk with you, and they're going to help you get on steady ground, and then they're going to escort you to the emergency room where better care can be given to you, and maybe you can see, the doctors can look at you and see if maybe they can get you on some medication if there's some other mental health issues going on. So that's what that looks like.